Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Medical Grand Rounds for May the 26th. We've got, I think, an entertaining and somewhat unusual subject with which to engage you this morning. Title of Medical Uncertainty and Crowdsourcing, Ask Renal, a Nephrology Social Media Experiment. Before we begin, I'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we're located on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional gathering place for diverse indigenous peoples, including the Cree, Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota Sioux, Iroquois, Dene, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Anishinaabe, Inuit, and many others whose histories, languages, and cultures continue to enrich our vibrant community. Now, our presenter today will be known to many of you. Dr. Nikhil Shah is a clinical assistant professor in the Division of Nephrology and co-director of the Alberta Kidney Care Peritoneal Dialysis Unit. He graduated from medical school and completed general internal medicine and nephrology residencies at the University of Pune in India. At the U of A, he completed a nephrology fellowship, kidney transplant fellowship, and home dialysis fellowship before joining the Division of Nephrology. His primary interests are improving the uptake and outcomes of home dialysis and peritoneal dialysis in particular, and integrating social media in nephrology education. He's also the social media editor of the journal Peritoneal Dialysis International, which I hope you're all following. So, Dr. Shah, over to you.
Thank you so much. So thank you, everyone. I have not seen this kind of attendance since my job interview, so that's fantastic. All right, so an unconventional topic, as Dr. Naik suggested. When I was doing my annual review with Dr. Kassam last year, I was talking about my social media experiments and social media involvement. And she suggested, why don't you present grand rounds on the work that you're doing for nephrology? So I said, okay, this division and this department has so many social media celebrities. What am I going to say? So the topic I chose today was something that I have struggled with, some medical uncertainty, like many of us would have. And what I did, a project that I helped create to overcome some of that, and that can be helpful to all. So let's see how this goes. Perfect. These are my disclosures. And here we go. So I have tried to divide this talk in 4 parts. First, I'll try and explore some medical uncertainty. Then we'll go on to understand crowdsourcing, which is one of the an innovative way of how you can seek answers from a broader population, and how social media and medicine can be integrated in this crowdsourcing way of asking questions. Then we'll review a project that I helped create, which is Ask Renal on Twitter, and then a few take-home messages and a roadmap maybe for do's and don'ts of crowdsourcing. Let's start. I often tell my patients, medicine is not math. 2 + 2 not always makes 4. There is always a certain degree of uncertainty. Many things I don't know, many things I'm not sure of, many things I would struggle with as I explain prognosis, explain the diagnosis. And we physicians are almost always dealing with certain degree of uncertainty on whenever we are practicing. So let me start with a story. This is Dr. Adams, a fresh graduate family physician, finished his 2 years of family medicine fellowship residency, and then started practicing in the same village that he grew up in. Knew everyone, everybody knew him. And in this small village, there is one other physician along with him, and he's the same physician who delivered Dr. Adams as a baby. Loves his job, super excited to work back in this place, and ready to go. But like every physician, especially those who have increased responsibility, whether it is residents, whether it is senior medicine, whether it is young attendings, whether it is people who have just started, or a complicated patient, there is always a certain degree of dread. That phone call or that patient walking into your clinic who's like, I am not sure what this is. I'm not sure what is going on. I don't know how to proceed. Maybe I need to do something more. And that dread and uncertainty always remains, especially when you see something that is complex. So again, Dr. Adams in this small little village, waiting for something hopefully not to happen, all usual, and then this steps into his clinic. So again, he's sitting in his OPD. This patient is he's known his all his life, comes in and presents with this particular problem. And this lady, she also got a box of cookies because she knows this is the newest doctor in town, and she knows him forever. So no pressure. This patient has already been to several people, at least three physicians to try and get this particular problem solved. There is no resolution. Um, Dr. Adams start treating this empirically for another week, but nothing, still remains the same. What happens next is something that we have felt so many times, that uneasy sensation. What are we missing? Why is this not getting better? Do I know what I am supposed to know? That indecision, that doubt, it creates tension, it creates stress. And the box of cookies doesn't help because it is actually putting a lot of stress. And we all know this indecision and stressful environment, especially when you are alone in a particular environment, whether it is the ER in the middle of the night or in a rural clinic, it can lead to disillusionment and burnout. So medical uncertainty, what is it? It is the unconscious, it is the conscious metacognitive awareness of ignorance, of something that you don't know. It is pervasive and it is an important experience in medicine, occurs with everybody and occurs in almost all circumstances, various, it doesn't have to be a rural physician, it can be absolutely anybody. It affects both the providers and the recipients of healthcare. Physicians know that sometimes their patients are going to be not very happy with what you've just told them. They have doubts, they have questions, and they are perfectly valid. Uh, what is also important is this aversive psychological effect, the thoughts and the feelings of vulnerability and propensity to indecision, inaction. Let me give you antibiotics for another week and we'll see. That becomes push the can down the road sort of a phenomenon. Uncertainty is universal, and it occurs in absolutely every specialty. In this review for physician perception of uncertainty among different specialties, you can see family medicine, general internal medicine, and pediatrics right at the top, on a Likert scale, one being the least uncertain, surgeons obviously on the bottom there, and greatest uncertainty right at the top of the scale. And surprisingly, nephrology never has any uncertainty, it does not even register. uh, what does a person do when faced with uncertainty? They follow the diagnostic process. Patient arrives in the clinic. Patient has a problem, comes to the clinic, and you collect information. Information is collected, you integrate and interpret the information, make a working diagnosis. Once you have the information all gathered, you do a clinical history, physical exam, diagnostic testing, referral, consultations, talk to the patient, figure out a plan, and then start the treatment. And depending on the response to the treatment, you come back and find out how the patient is doing. Now, uncertainty in this particular diagnostic process has in this particular review, they have a taxonomy of how this uncertainty can be managed. It is four types of uncertainty strategies. One is ignorance focused, which is I don't know something and I need to find out what the answers are. Then there is uncertainty focus. Am I comfortable with what I am dealing with, and do I need more information? Response focus is how I am dealing with myself with this particular uncertainty in front of this patient. And then relationship focus, wherein how is the patient and the family kind of achieving it. And I'm not going to go into the details of all of this. Uh, what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit which is related to what work I do in social media. The two things that we almost always and very commonly do is consult with our colleagues and search medical literature. Let's see how that goes. So in this particular review, it was a qualitative study. So they had several people from various stages of their training and practice provide some feedback on how and some statements on how they deal with uncertainty. So let's talk a bit about consulting with colleagues. Ultimately, in most academic centers, there's almost always someone to bounce the idea off. And absolutely, we talk about this all the time. Residents, I have an attending physician who I'm running everything by. Somebody you're always very comfortable with. Dr. Shah, I don't know what this is. Can we just discuss this further? Yes. Frequently talk about cases with my colleagues to make sure I'm not crazy. We all sometimes will come into the office and say, hi, I need a consult. I may be overdoing this a little bit because I don't think anybody's answering my door knocks anymore. But we'll see. Next, searching medical literature. Yeah, nobody's opening the door. I need to possibly do what I'm supposed to do, that is find out and read what it is. So searching medical literature, what are the statements? By research, I mean reading, more reading. I do a lot of reading. I guess, do I have all the knowledge? So there are times when I'll look stuff up. And this we all do. We all do. We all go through all of this. What do we do to do this? What do we do to look things up? We go to UpToDate, we read our textbooks, go to PubMed, and I have a very sneaky suspicion because I've done this too. Google it sometimes. And the newest kid on the block, right? ChatGPT. Who knows what that's going to go, where that's going to go? But it's something that is out there for more looking it up. This is what happens whenever I try to do it. I am completely, oh my goodness, whoa. I need one answer and I now have 500 answers. This is where that struggle is. But I want you to pause here and think about where we are and where most of the doctors in the world are. We are very privileged, work in an academic center, have fantastic colleagues who never stop opening the doors to answer questions. We are blessed with a fantastic library and frankly, every possible resource. But think about people, physicians working in underdeveloped countries or poorly developed countries. They are seeing 50 patients at a time and they're alone in that particular place. How does such a person, when struggling with medical uncertainty, ask a question? Whom do they ask it to? And they don't have these resources. And that's why we need a level playing field. And as people in this part of the world, can we help? This brings me to the second part, which is understanding crowdsourcing and the role of social media in medicine. And this was in 2006 that this term was coined, probably, in the Wired magazine by Jeff Ho. And what it means is a new pool of cheap labor, everyday people using their spare cycles to create content, solve problems, and do corporate R&D. This was related to information technology and computers and all that stuff. So I asked ChatGPT, define crowdsourcing in 50 words. First time I asked this question, I said, just define crowdsourcing. It gave me a 2,000-word essay. I was like, yeah, no, that's not working. So I said, okay, define crowdsourcing in 50 words. Crowdsourcing is obtaining services, ideas, or content by soliciting contributions from a large group of people, typically online, leveraging the collective intelligence, creativity, and expertise. I'm pretty sure ChatGPT is stealing from the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It's identical definition. And I'm like, what? I hope they're paying some royalties here. Anyways, why and how to crowdsource? I am sitting in Dr. Adams, right? Dr. Adams sitting in a rural population there, does not really have a door to knock where you can ask questions. What do you do? Crowdsourcing, you have to engage a crowd. Most of it is online, they are not around, which is a good level playing field because practically everybody is available. Social media is practically available to everybody. You are not asking a particular question to a particular individual. And many times you will see this too. Somebody is knocking on my door and saying, Dr. Shah, um, what about this complicated metabolic alkalosis? I'm like, hold your horses, man. I know I'm a nephrologist, but yeah, talk to somebody else. Dialysis, you come to me, I'll help you with whatever you need. But so this is a problem, right? Your mentor or your teacher or the person you're knocking the door of may or may not know the answer that you're seeking. And then what, right? You need more people to answer. We have kidney matters meeting or rounds to discuss all of this, but sometimes you don't. And faster and more cost effective. I don't have to pay for up to date if I'm getting all the answers from the crowd. So how do you do crowdsourcing? How do you ask a question to a broader population so that you know how the answers? Anyway, you identify the problem, you call for participation, and the contributors offer their knowledge and expertise. The problem is this: call for participation. How do you do that, right? All right, this is where social media is key. Social media is popular. There is no doubt about it. Why? Cell phones are more popular than toilets. Cell phone subscriptions, and this is not me, this is World Bank. Cell phone subscriptions are definitely higher than sanitation services. And why this is so important is if you do this, you will realize it, that it is absolutely pervasive. Everybody needs a phone. So think about how much active social media is. 4.62 billion people. Nearly 60% of the population are active social media users. Internet users between 16 and 18, daily time spent with social media, 2 hours and 27 minutes. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time. So social media platforms are where the people are. Not necessarily people, but all the physicians too. Everybody's on social media. So time spent with social media apps. These are the top 5 social media apps. Again, this is January 2022. Not much has changed since then. YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok. But I'm going to stick to Twitter because that is what I know. And that is what I've been doing for a little bit. Yesterday was my 13th anniversary of being on Twitter. I'm pretty sure this is what's going to happen at the end. So why Twitter? Twitter is interesting because, and we all know what's happening with Twitter, but we'll not go there. Twitter is open and it is public. You're going to ask a question, it is out there for everybody. Instagram, Facebook, you're asking a question to a echo chamber. People who follow you, people who don't follow you. In Twitter, potentially every tweet can be read by everybody. There is hashtags. Hashtags combine people together, combine topics together, and that is the key. It's real time, it's fast, and there is network diversity. Like I said, it is an open platform. You don't necessarily are talking to only your colleagues. You're talking to colleagues all over the world who have seen more collectively. And then there is amplification and virality. If there is a topic that is really key, important, it is likely that more and more people will talk about it. More and more people will be interested. So this is not new. Crowdsourcing, social media, or in medicine is really not new. There have been publications for some time that have been going on for trying to figure this out. And I like this very much because I want to show you a real example. March 31st, 2021, a nurse asked me a question from the PD unit. A heavy duty mechanic wants to do PD. We have a rule, no lifting more than 30 pounds. Either this patient goes on PD or loses his job. That's not a good idea. So I went on Twitter and asked the question, hey guys, how do I do this? Can I actually ask the patient to get PD in any case? People were like, yeah, sure, 100%, go ahead. And then people reached out to me on DM saying, Jyoti is a physician, nephrologist in Birmingham, UK. She says, it's an interesting question. Should we do a study? Look at the time. March 31st, 4:26 p.m., first question asked. March 31st, 11:25 p.m. that night, we were planning a study. This has been submitted. Reviewer comments are being addressed right now. So this is the power of Twitter. You can actually do this. You can actually ask a question. You can actually some research. Now, this is a problem. So Dr. Schwartz, when Dr. Schwartz is asking a question, hey, crowdsourcing ideas for Med Twitter and ID Twitter, Hive Mind for a talk. What about generative AI, Chat GPT? Are you excited? How concerned? But you know what the fun part about Dr. Schwartz's profile? Nearly 40,000 followers. He asks a question. There are so many people who are going to hear that, see that, and they're going to answer that question. But what about Dr. Adams from rural Alberta? He is what, 75? He's got 22 people following, all of them from his village, all of them his family. Nobody is going to answer his question about what is happening here. What do we do? So this is all he's going to hear, just crickets. Here we come with Ask Reno, or the use of social media to get these questions out there. Social media in nephrology is quite organized and has been for several years, right from 2006 until today. There have been so many blogs, so many websites. There is gamification of nephrology journal clubs. So many of you already know. We started Ask Renal in 2016, and I'll talk about that in a bit. And there have been podcasts, and it's an ongoing a deluge of fantastic free and open access medical education from nephrology. That community is super strong. And it is not just limited to medical students, residents, fellows, it is everybody. Rich interactions with patients, caregivers, allied health. It's a community. And that is not one way, which is very key. It is back and forth. Anybody can ask a question and anybody can get an answer. So 2016, Precious Bodily Fluids is a blog run by Dr. Joltoff, I believe in Detroit. Question, if there was a hashtag that medical students could use who are struggling with renal physiology, pathophysiology, and there are nephrologists all over the world who are waiting to answer that question. Well, let's do a hashtag and we'll see if Twitter can help. And the pulse on the questions keeps hanging. Medical students will make us better teachers. So, it's a win-win situation. So we went ahead and we created a hashtag called Ask Reno. So what does a medical student do when they have a renal question? Introducing Ask Reno. So this is what I created. This was a account that I created that day, 9th of December, 2016. And we created this hashtag, Ask Reno. Now, there are many hashtags. What is so unique about that? What is the big deal? The big deal is automation. What I did in the background was created a bot that scours the Twitter world every 15 minutes and looks for the hashtag Ask Reno. When it sees the hashtag Ask Reno, it retweets it, it likes it, it forces the Twitter algorithm to elevate that particular tweet. So if Dr. Adams needed an answer, he would have to put in an Ask Renal hashtag. Even though he has 22 followers, Ask Renal has nearly 8,000, 9,000 followers. Most of these are nephrologists or nephrology-related people. We started with 0 followers in 2016, and it is a pretty solid base of people who are willing and ready to look at those questions and answer. We actually studied this. So social media platforms can be used for contemporary crowdsourcing and medical education. These are a few slides that we presented at the American Society of Nephrology oral abstract last year and Dr. Tikal was the one who presented it. Individuals, especially those with small follower counts, may find it challenging the call to social media. So they can't reach large audiences. And the hypothesis was Ask Renal is a tool which anybody can use to achieve timely and helpful responses on Twitter. So we created this Ask Renal account and the bot to automatically retweet. And then because of the critical mass that Ask Renal account already has, we were able to amplify that quite a bit. So if you look at any question with Ask Renal anymore. I'm not going to go into the details of the questions, obviously, but you ask a question, anyone have experience with medical nephrectomy, and you put the Ask Renal there, irrespective of how many retweets and likes, you will get answers. You will get answers with not only information, hey, I've never done this, hey, I've done this, and this is what it is. What is very important is they present their own experience and they present links to that particular paper, which makes it more valid. Same question. Hey, this is a resident in nephrology. What are the current use of N-acetylcysteine for raised creatinine preventing contrast-induced nephropathy? And all the nephrologists all over the world are you crazy? Hold on. There is a randomized control trial showing there's no use. So stop talking about it. This is important. You have 240 followers. You're not going to find this answer easily if you do it just by yourself. This was literally yesterday. It's not just nephrology, ID Twitter. And so this can be used by anybody and everybody. You just need a population. You just need dedicated people who will support this. So we did a study. We looked at all the tweets with that Ask Renal hashtag. We had 17,000 tweets in this 2016 to 2021, I believe. Duplicates and retweets were removed. We had 3,654 screened tweets. Non-questions were included, and we included nearly 3,100 tweets for analysis. And the way we analyzed it was very important. We have a very solid nephrology social media collective. It's a year-long internship that we, part of NephJC, run. What is important in this is we had nephrology individuals look at every single tweet and classify according to a standard REDCap database. What is the question? Who is asking the question? How many followers they have? And they had a series of questions to ask about all of this. And interestingly, even though we designed this particular project for medical students, look at who's asking most questions. Nephrology attendings, they are the ones who are asking most questions. And it's interesting, not just because what you're seeing here is people are asking questions about either the latest things or I've not seen this before and can I get some help? And there are some non-nephrology attendings asking questions about it too. Out of all the people, remember we had talked about this, like, does the follower count make a difference, right? So everybody, irrespective of their follower count, got a reply. And that was key. So Dr. Adams, back in rural Alberta with 22 followers, will also very likely get a reply. What kind of questions have people been asking over the last 4 or 5 years using this Ask Renal bot? Clinical cases, dialysis related, medications. These are the top 3. COVID came in midway between Ask Renal, and there were many questions about that too. So all in all of nephrology, people are asking questions, and it is a lot of fun. So 77% of the questions were answered. If you look about any survey, 30 to 40%, you'll get a reply. In this particular way of asking a question out in the world, in the Twitter world, 77% response, I think that's pretty good. 69% were answered in 6 hours. So remember, getting an answer in a timely manner, that is key. That's pretty impressive. 83% of them were considered helpful. Now, who decides helpful? This is not a perfect study, obviously, but these are 15 to 20 nephrology professionals who have looked at every tweet and every answer, and they have decided whether that question and that answer was relevant and whether it was helpful. So this is pretty solid. And 77% of these helpful answers actually contained a link to a resource. So it's not just a presentation of, hey, this is just my experience. No, there is some data or something that is attached to it. So works beautifully. So what am I, so again, this is a conclusion for this particular part, but again, a targeted hashtag, a dedicated Twitter account, a few people combining together to support it works quite well. And again, it doesn't matter if you have a lot of followers. Again, this is Ask Renal. Anybody can use it. It's out there and it's a lot of fun. It's a big team that supports it. And when we did this, NEGM picked it up at the American Society of Nephrology, saying, you know what, this sounds interesting. They butchered my name, but still, that's okay. We do have a lovely interview with Joe Elia about it. So, how does one go about doing this if they wanted to do it for their own specialty or whatever they wanted a pot like this for? You go to so this is what I did. This is what I did it from 2016. Go to digitalinspiration.com. They have Twitter bots. You don't need to know code. I don't know code, but we can create something that works and create something that can, and it is a step-by-step process for anybody who's interested. There are undoubtedly many different platforms, right? And there's LinkedIn, there is Facebook, there's ASN community. Now, I'll go into detail of some of them, but not many. The reason why I like to use Twitter is not only because I've been on it for a long time, but and the entire community is built around it. We have seen a shift in the last little bit where people are disillusioned with what Twitter is doing. People are disillusioned with the way misinformation is being handled and the overall direction where Twitter is going. People have moved on to Mastodon and other places where they can ask questions or interact with people. I am not one of those who has moved. I stay in the Twitter world. I just consider it as a big playground. There is noise on one side, but in my own corner of nephrology, I think I'm okay as long as I don't go seeking for trouble. And I think that is really important. Sometimes it is something that people forget is when Twitter is ultimately an algorithm. What you're seeing on it is an algorithm. You go looking for trouble, trouble will find you and then keep finding you because that is what the algorithm goes. So don't go there and you will be, I believe that Twitter timelines can still be very, very useful. And there are many ways to do this. Is that the only way to ask questions? Obviously not. Crowdsourcing truly needs to be platforms that are available everywhere all the time. And do not need to be a product that is being used by a individual who can direct where that platform is going. So people use ASN communities in nephrology. It's American Society of Nephrology has this forum where there are topics that are discussed and there are people who have long form answers, long form questions. You can actually upload images to it and it is very good. International Society of Nephrology, similar way. WhatsApp, people use WhatsApp to discuss all of this. And yeah, there is multiple ways of doing it. Staying professional is the key. And that's why Facebook, Instagram, you can do it, but there is a certain trepidation in going there. But yeah, there are lots and lots of options. So coming to the last little bit of my presentation is some do's and don'ts of crowdsourcing. Obviously, we are talking about a patient ultimately. So we want to be sure that we are doing the right thing and not not creating problems for ourselves. So do clearly state that you're seeking general opinions and experience, not professional medical advice. You're not going there. This is a patient. How do I treat him? What is the dose? And what am I doing? No, you're asking for experience. You're asking for, hey, what do I do with this? Have you seen something like this? What was your experience? And sometimes Twitter and Ask Renal and these hashtags help you connect, help you get in contact with people who may have that experience. And then you can move the conversation offline and then discuss it with either emails or direct messaging and stuff like that, so that you're not discussing out there in the public. Provide relevant background information. Twitter is 280 characters. Now it is much more, but there is a problem if you're giving incomplete information, you're not going to get great answers, right? So information, context for your questions to help the contributors understand, and then you'll get good answers. It's simple. You provide a good, you present a good case, you get good answers. Respectful and constructive discussions. What you're doing is nonsense. Are you an idiot? Yeah, that's not going to fly. Nobody's going to follow you. Nobody's going to reply to you. Be respectful, be constructive. Our Twitter community in nephrology has been so supportive and they've been so helpful that every time something comes out and there is something wrong with that tweet, even if the person may not realize, we gently reach out in the back saying, tap on the shoulder, maybe that wasn't the best thing to do, or maybe you want to reframe it. That community really helps and it supports you. And I think, yes, you need some time to get to that point where there is a critical mass. But if you don't start, you'll never get there. Verify information shared by contributors with reliable sources. Yeah, just don't believe everybody. Obviously, it's Twitter. Anybody can say anything. But so when you're making those decisions, take that into consideration. You want to go back to what that article was. What is the verification for that information? Don't share sensitive information and personally identifiable health information. Obviously, anybody will get into trouble for that. Respect privacy, respect confidentiality. It is important. Um, if you're posting pictures and stuff like that, make sure you have consent. Make sure you have you're not identifying something. Sometimes you have an X-ray and there is names written on it and stuff like that, and you don't want to go there. Don't rely solely on crowdsourced opinions. Keep knocking on those doors. Somebody will open for sure, but do it, and don't just 100% believe that. Don't engage in misinformation, pseudoscience. Obviously, we've seen so much out there in the last 3 years, 4 years that it is people have shut off social media because of this, because there's too much misinformation. But there are ways to manage it, and we can certainly talk about that at a later date. And don't avoid making appropriate referrals. Dr. Adams there has looked at it, looked at everything, but there's also, hey, call Rapid. I need help here. And that is what that is all for, right? To make that appropriate referral. So don't hesitate. Yes, those cookies were amazing that the lady brought in, and she wants you to manage it. But sometimes you do have to push it along and say, you know what? This is not my comfort zone. Please let us go ahead and do a formal referral. And that's perfectly fine. This is fantastic advice. When you're using Twitter, I absolutely love this tweet. Vincent Rajkumar, I believe, is a hematologist in the US. Remember, patients are on Twitter. Live up to the standards of a profession. Don't say anything that you wouldn't say in front of a person. Be kind. No personal attacks. You're an idiot. No, don't do that. Just don't do it. And assume positive intent. My first language is not English, right? So if I'm saying something that makes, what did he just say? Maybe I didn't mean it that way. So assume positive intent and let's get on with it. Don't be rude. Don't engage with people who are rude, and respond to colleagues and patients with questions. Sometimes people provoke you and it's hard to stay silent, but it's better to mute these people and not amplify them by engaging them further. Patients appreciate the civility amongst us. So it was not Dr. Adams, but it was Janet Pope who put in this picture. It was a clinical poll for, hey, what this is, and look at the replies. Gouty arthritis, furosemide related, and Dr. Adams made the answer. But my take-home message, medical uncertainty is common and stressful. There are non-traditional ways to overcome this uncertainty as well. Crowdsourcing works. It does. We've shown it. And it can help and get expert advice and connections. And what is even more important, where I very genuinely feel that people should be on social media, is people want your expertise as well. Find your people. Use Med Twitter, Pete's Twitter, Heme Twitter, ID Twitter, Ask ICU. All these hashtags will help you connect with like-minded people, and you will really enjoy it. At the end of the day, it's all about perspective. I love it. I do, certainly do. But again, it is all about where you're looking at it from. Thank you so much, and happy for questions.
Thank you very much. That was really entertaining. A question from me first, I guess. Forecast the future. Where is this going? I liked your fourth do, check reliable sources.
Yes.
So why not just cut out the middleman and go to those reliable sources? But where are we going with all of this?
People are going to ask these questions all the time. People are going to get these responses all the time. Sometimes you're asking a question where you're not going to get a reliable answer. What is happening is when somebody is eager to reply and provide a resource, they are also connecting with these people, and that probably is very useful. And that is where people are going to go. This is becoming more diverse. Nobody is reading textbooks anymore. So there is more and more of what review am I reading? What article am I reading? So I think that attention span is smaller, and this is likely to help.
We've got some comments and questions. Quentin Durand-Moreau has talked in the chat about the CPS advice to the professions on social media,
Yes.
and you mentioned some of those into things.
Yes.
And I guess the other thing that's come up is confidentiality, which would be fairly important. He said here, are those making the best tweets having the most reliable answers? In the current Musk world where no one's certified if you don't pay the subscription, how can you be certain about the qualification of the person who answers?
Yeah, absolutely. And there is no doubt about that is why that slide. Don't rely solely on that particular question, because at the end of the day, we don't know where all this is going. This is really something that is in flux right now over the last almost a year now, since October 2022, at least when Elon Musk kind of took over Twitter. This has been in such a flux that there have been a back and forth. Who is reliable? What is reliable? Am I giving good advice? Who is that person who's actually saying they're seemingly to be, right? You pay money and you get a check mark. It is an opportunity to connect, but definitely not rely on it solely. And that is why I think it is important not to be bound by it. I think it's an opportunity that can be done. It is an opportunity that you can find more people and then move offline. That is what I do, right? If I'm asking a question on Ask Renal or I'm highlighting a question, how you construct a tweet is important, like you said, and that is it'll get into people's timelines if you ask a question properly, if you add an image to it, if you add a meme to it and stuff. And yes, there is popularity too, definitely, no doubt about it. But again, you're not getting answers here. There is one step more than where you were before. And again, that helps because that is going to connect you to people. I think networking is going to be where ultimately you'll find your final answer, reliable answers.
So Dr. Pillai says, what's your thought about having a bot for the Department of Nephrology website, which can be used to answer nephrology-related questions?
That's an actually interesting question and something that we are working on, not for the Department of Nephrology here, but I'm the social media editor for Peritoneal Dialysis International, and I'm one of the media subcommittee members for International Society for Peritoneal Dialysis. The ISPD website has a fantastic Q&A section where people all over the world ask PD related questions, and only a few people answer because language is an issue and stuff. And that is where we are going to increase the breadth in adding those questions to Twitter using Ask Renal and see where we go. So we are working towards it. If we get that working, maybe we can expand it to other areas.
And now somewhat more controversial. Do you think medical schools should offer lectures anymore since information's available in so many places? And something for which UCL is being sued by its students over COVID, the fact that they stopped everything. What do you think about that?
No, I think I am a textbook person. I still read my textbook. There is so I actually very strongly believe that your base knowledge needs to be strong before all these additional specialty questions or out of the way questions. Your base knowledge absolutely should be strong. So your medical school lectures, they are the base. They are going to form on which you can build. If the base is shaky, whatever you add to it, all this ultimately is a decoration. It'll fall through if the base is not strong. So no, I am for it. Lectures and then add to it.
And then Dr. Vethanayagam makes an interesting point around federal and provincial privacy laws and how they might vary, and how individuals might be identified or by their physical location or academic institution. How do you deal with that in this community of practice?
One very important point in this entire presentation is protecting the privacy of a patient. Before you do any of this, you should always reach out to your own division, department, and your hospital or AHS policies to find out what can be done and what cannot be done. There have been discussions with either CPSA and CMPA, and like the earlier participant had put in, there are definite laws or there are definite advice on how to go about this. Follow that advice. I think if that advice allows you to do something, go ahead. If it does not allow you to do something, don't do it. Usually the Twitter bios have what you call it as a cover all sort of a mention. I'm not giving any advice. This is my personal advice, not my employer's advice. But that does not that may or may not fly if there is an actual legal issue. So at any time you have a question about that am I doing this right? If you're questioning that particular thing, stop, don't do it. That itself gives you a barrier there to not do something that is not right. But it is a very when you frame a question in this manner, in crowdsourcing, always change aspects which will not identify that person. Or even if it's a picture, change, crop it to make it only that particular part and nothing else. At the end of the day, it is still possible that it is identified. If I'm doing something, I'm talking to the patient. I'm actually saying to the patient, look, I am uncertain about what I am doing here. I want to ask my colleagues, and I'm going to put it on a particular place where you might be able to see it. And this is what it is. You know what? Patients come back and tell me, hey, doc, go ahead with it. Let's see what people think about it. And they're happy. If they say, no way, no way. That's it. So I kind of encourage that shared decision making in that and go ahead with it.
So you mentioned, as you said, there are multiple social media channels.
Yes.
Is there a lot of cross-fertilization or do users tend to be fairly siloed?
No, so that is a great question. To give you an example, Facebook and Instagram and these tend to be more family-based, friends and family, and what am I doing with my life sort of a thing. Twitter is mostly professional to a majority extent. And that is what I have used in my own work, that I have kept it completely siloed. Now, majority of the people who are not from North America are not maybe on Twitter as much, but they are on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. How do you reach those people? So sometimes when we are tweeting, and especially these questions or journal articles and stuff, I cross-pollinate it to Facebook, and we have softwares to do that. You can post the identical things on both places so that you can expand your reach in that way. But I tend to stay on Twitter because I believe it's more professional, or LinkedIn, more professional rather than Facebook, which more family and friends.
Yeah. So we have no more questions and comments. So if you were to summarize what you said, what guidance would you give an aspiring social media individual within the department who wanted to start out from scratch?
First of all, I would say open a Twitter account. The most important part of it is people are hesitant to do that. We don't want to do that. Open a Mastodon account or whatever you want, but be on social media. You will not see anything first. And what you need to do is to follow a few people that you know, maybe around you, that are teachers that want to actually teach. The other thing that is very entertaining and important is you want to find those hashtags that bring the community together. Go on Twitter, and the first thing you want to do is to do hashtag #MedTwitter. That itself will bring so many people together with that hashtag. When you read through the tweets, you will find out who is posting interesting stuff. If you don't want to follow them, don't follow them. A simple advice, make a list. Instead of going and following a person, maybe you don't want to, add that person to a list. They don't know that you are following them, but you can add to that list. And instead of following a timeline, if you follow this med Twitter list, you will get all the information that you would need, and interesting information, and you will not uh, be seen as following somebody who's got weird thoughts and posts random stuff. But at the same time, you'll be able to see what they're posting without actually following. So there are ways to do it. That's very workable.
Well, in that, thank you very much. I hope you've all found it entertaining and engaging as I have. And thank you for attending this week's Medical Rounds.
Thank you
Shah,
so
thank
much.
you.
Thank you.